Alright, time for another draft physics video presentation. DraftScience here on YouTube. Anyway, so comments sort of, just a couple of subjects, probably magnetism, and back to lensing in the end, and something else maybe. So we'll see how it goes. Alright, so a comment left by Carmine. This displays properties of both push and pull at 1:30. So I'll go to the video. Or do you disagree? Well, there's no point in talking about. There's lots of things that show attraction. What we'd say, hey, it's attracted. Gravity does that, right? So it's not about what you see. It's about what's causing it. And so the whole point of the conversation is about the obvious, I would say, argument is that you can, well, jump to this, so I'll go to the chalkboard. The simple argument is that the idea of a push, a repulsion, is easily displayed or argued or defended and such, as being elemental. Because you can understand if I have to repel you, okay, if I'm a person and I want to repel somebody who's coming or who's over here, how do I do that, right? And the easiest way to do it is just to throw something at the person and just keep throwing crap at the person and, have a little balls of crap here and you just throw them at the person and it repels them. So there's a really simple way. You can even break off pieces. Like I could just break off a piece of me and throw it at the person and repel them. So that's really easy to understand. And that if I had a universe full of stuff, that was bouncing around, pressure, little bits of crap that was just flying through the universe in all kinds of directions, that theoretically, okay, that stuff could just, bounce off of me and hit this other guy and repel him. But there's no real argument for attraction. He can be pushed by the external universe, right? A bunch of stuff can be hitting him from one side, and then I can stop letting stuff bounce off of me, and I can catch everything that comes this way. I can just catch it, right? Anything that comes like this way, I'll just catch it, so it doesn't reflect off me. Well, then he's not going to get hit by anything, and he's going to get pushed into me. It's not going to be an attraction. It's just going to be an absence of repulsion. So the point is that the elemental thing is the pressure. Pressure is an idea that doesn't have a negative, right? I mean, the idea of pressure is always, it either is or is not. Like temperature, right? It either is or it isn't. Okay, you either have something or you have nothing. And the idea is if I change with temperature, if I lower my temperature, I'm lowering essentially the pressure. I'm lowering something. I'm getting rid of something. I'm stopping something. I'm not creating attraction. I'm just creating an absence of repulsion, an absence of pressure, an absence of resistance, an absence of what is already existing, which is the temperature or the pressure of the outside. So the point is there's no elemental way to deal with this idea of negative pressure. There's no such thing as negative pressure. There's no such thing as negative temperature, except we have an arbitrary zero. But the point is that all the temperatures are degrees of real temperature, and the zero is always just something we like 32 degrees, because that's freezing. But there's no such thing as a negative temperature. You have some increment of temperature, and there's some increment of pressure, and there's no such thing as a negative. Okay, there just isn't. There's no real negative voltage. There's just voltage negative to ground's pressure. Ground has the earth has a voltage, so to speak, but it's not a negative. There's no such thing as a negative voltage. Well, that's a bad example because it gets into protons and electrons, which are inversely related. But anyway, so that's the fundamental argument: is that you can't come up with you can't show me an example Or you could say the mechanism is attraction. The mechanism is negative pressure. The mechanism is negative temperature. You can't show me, okay, where something created an actual attraction. And I can show you an explanation where, oh, it's just an absence of a counterforce. There's a force, and you're not countering it, and therefore it's going to end up moving because you didn't counter the force. You took away the pressure, and by taking away the equalizing pressure, it's not equal anymore. All right, so we'll go to the video. So we'll go back here. No, I didn't turn that on to read the comment. Sorry about that. Yeah, so there's the comment. And here's the video. So I've played this video, I think this actual video before, in a previous video, and because it's illustrating essentially what I've argued about how atoms actually do share electrons. And it's a, in my opinion, pretty good example of exactly the principle. So there's no attraction involved. There's just an equalization of pressure.
And this is the second one I've come across, extraordinary. And it consists of just 4 neodymium discs, which are very strong magnets. And then curiously here we have a ring containing 6 very small neodymium magnets. And now to make the...
So I've talked about just putting the magnets under glass. The principle here is the magnets can't flip like they would naturally want to do. So they're not able to flip and therefore attract. They're not able to do what they would naturally do because you've put them in a structure. And the same thing would happen if you put them under glass. So you can have a bunch of repulsive magnets under a piece of glass. The magnets can't flip, and therefore they can do what you'll see here.
You simply have to join these pieces together. Thus.
So you could just put this experiment under 2 sheets of glass. You could put the magnets under a piece of glass, and you'll see the same effect, kind of. I mean, obviously they're free to move, which is a big difference also.
That's quite strong now. And this one here, oh, that's a strong one. To show how strong they are, we'll just bring it together and see what happens.
This is the little boring part.
Push it away from quite a distance. Anyway, we want it to be attracting, so I'm going to put it in that mode there, but it's going to come towards it. We'll keep it away. Now the ring here, we're going to get this into repulsion mode to try and get it to push away. Oh, it's attracting. So I'll turn it over, and now it should repel. Yes, it's repelling. Now the clever part is when we put these 2 pieces together as an assembly, we've now got a single magnetic system in which we have one that's going to be attracted to this.
So as you can see, the sleight of hand here is he put the one that's, he put the other he showed this one's repulsing when he already showed the other 2 are repelling, and then he put the other magnet inside the thing upside down, so it does confuse you a little.
And a little set of ring of 6 which are being repelled by this outside magnet. What's going to happen?
Right, so this is repelling here also, but it can't repel. It's not allowed to push the magnets away. So these 2 magnets are attractive, the 2 big ones, and the little ones are repulsive. They're the same. They can't be the same. They're the same as the magnet that's in there. So, you know, you have attraction to the inside and repulsion to the outside.
Now bring this towards it. It's being attracted to the middle one, but it's being repelled by the little satellite ones on the outside. What could happen? Oh, it was attracted and it...
So, all you're really showing is exactly how an atom shares electrons. So the point would be, we'll go to the drawing table again, and such. Alright, so obviously I've called this 2 + 2 + 2 physics, and you know, it's too much for people, so you know, I don't even bother trying to explain, you know, because yes, it's just too much. +2 physics, okay, so the idea is there's 2 forces, okay, there's 2 kinds of force. They're both moving the speed of light. They're identical little bits. It's just that, just like the electron and proton, they have an oppositeness to them. Okay, so the electron and the proton, well, let me put, well, these are bits of force, so that's just to indicate it's bits of force. And then you have electrons and protons, and they're It doesn't matter if there's a little size difference. It's not going to affect anything. So the idea is they can be any sizes. It just doesn't matter, frankly, because their effect is proportional to their size. So it just doesn't make any difference. All right, so this would be, say, the electron, and this is the proton. And we know they function in just an inverse kind of way. Whatever's repulsive, whatever kind of field pushes electrons away, it will attract, so to speak, protons. And I'm just arguing that, yes, there's a force moving the speed of light, okay, that is the same as those. It's commensurate to that. And that there's just two kinds of interactions, okay? So if a blue force hits a red thing, okay, you get a perpendicular, a change in the direction, just kind of like light reflecting inside of a fiber optic piece of glass. You get a change in direction of the light, and it doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't wear the light down. It doesn't use up its energy. It changes what dimension the light moves in. So it's just a dimensional change. You're just going from, the 3 dimensions. You're taking the dimensions and you're saying you're bringing something in, and all you're doing is saying it doesn't go in the same dimension. No, it goes this way, or it goes that way, or it goes this way, or it goes that way. But it goes perpendicular to the dimensions. And the 3 dimensions are, in fact, perpendicular to each other. That is, 2 of them are always on the same plane, and 1 of them is always penetrating that plane. So no matter how you look at it, 2 dimensions, the 3rd dimension is odd. But anyway, so that's the reaction. And if the opposite, the other choice, the same hits, same, it actually, yeah, you can see that. It actually moves the electron to a new position, okay, until a counter force hits and then reflects. So it actually moves the electron. So in one case, the electron doesn't move and the direction of the force is changed. In the other case, the electron is moved and the force is delayed in its function because of it. And so you just invert this for the proton. Just make it exactly the opposite. The 2 function exactly opposite. So I'm arguing simply that there's 2 kinds of force commensurate to the 2 kinds of charges, the plus minus and the, north-south of magnetism. And there's just 2 kinds of interactions. So this is illustrating, exactly what I'm saying, in the sense that electrons are charged. Now this, Maxwell will tell you this, okay? Maxwell could explain this if I made these charges. So we just make the magnet a charge and say this is a plus charge. All right, and we're going to put, minus charges around it. All right. Now if I put another minus charge out here, a big one, what's going to happen? Well, obviously there's going to be repulsion between these because these are reflecting force. All right, this is causing momentum. In other words, when it hits, it stays until it's reflected. So the idea is that the object is moving, the force hits, the object moves with the force, and then when a counter force hits, that's when this force reflects, and this force reflects, and this stays still now. It doesn't stop moving. So that's the reflection. So obviously that's what this is created by. The pressure between these things, that is the repulsion, is being created because, like 2 ping pong paddles, the force is trapped between them. And if I bring them closer together, I double, if I make the distance half, I double how many interactions are taking place, how many times the surface is hit by the force. So I can increase the energy by increasing the proximity. Simple argument. I mean, it's just so simple. So anyway, so there's repulsion between these 2. But what's happening between the red one and the blue one? So let's isolate them. Let's put a red and a blue, or a green, or whatever color you want to. What's happening? Well, all the green force is doing the perpendicular thing, leaving. All the red force, okay, is doing the same thing here. It's leaving, okay. So you have all the red force leaving through the proton, for example, and all the blue force leaving through the electron. And you don't end up with anything reflecting in here. You don't end up with any pressure at all. Nothing can stay inside here to create any repulsion. And now we have the normal field that's hitting everything, okay? That's red and blue. Pushing, all right? So this is still pushing this way, and there's nothing countering it. Because anything that's coming this way, any blue force that would hit this is going out this way. It's going out this way. So you have nothing here, and you have nothing from the outside can get into here. So obviously this object's going to move this way, and this object's going to move this way. So that's the attraction. All right. So the simple argument is when you put them in this balanced condition, you're just balancing the forces. So you have this pressure on the outside going this way. You have some mediation against that pressure here between the electrons. So it'd be better if I draw this electron down here just so you get the idea. Because it always finds the middle balance. And then you have a lack of pressure here. So you have low pressure here, high pressure here, high pressure here. And these two longer, right? This is a longer distance between this object and this object, this object and this object. You can't really see that. And this object is a less distance. So the closest distance is the attraction, but the further distance has two elements to it, but it's further away. And you're just creating enough force to say at a certain position, the force going this way, the force hitting me from the outside world, will equalize the force hitting me from these two electrons, and the attraction to the proton, and I'll stay in this position. This will be where I will be. I'll say that's equal. This now, this collectively, these high pressures and low pressures added up equal this, and that's why it stays here. So, and like I said, it just fits for the whole idea of what you think about atoms. Atoms are a positive nucleus, okay, with orbiting electrons, they say. Well, I'm saying they're not orbiting. They're doing exactly what's in that image, okay? The electrons are in positions, and when two atoms are sharing electrons, they're literally sharing them. So they would literally be sharing the electrons and balancing the relationship. And so the two atoms are literally sharing these electrons. They can share one, they can share two, they can share 3, 4. Just kind of depends on the configuration of the atom, but that's what they're doing. They're literally sharing them. They're in this position and they're locked just like those magnets. And that's why atoms really do have a rigidity and a consistency, is because they don't have swirling electrons. This is all magnetic, and magnetism is charge. It really is just charge. It's pluses and minuses, okay? That's what ions are, and that's what creates magnetic atoms, is a kind of ionization. All right, so that's probably enough. So, I mean, the theoretical argument, you can't sit there and prove it. Okay, the theoretical argument is there's no such thing as a negative pressure. There's only an absence of pressure. And the theoretical argument is there's no such thing as pull. There's only an absence of repulsion. There's only an absence of pushing. And there's nothing you can say, okay, to just say, oh, I have the missing element of the elemental attraction. There's no elemental negative pressure, is the argument. And so you have to theorize, what would the negative pressure be made out of? I can explain the force of the universe as creating an elemental repulsion. I can't explain, and just not having that repulsion is the same thing as attraction. But I can't draw the same diagram for your idea of a pull. A pull requires something much different being created, in the sense of something has to reach out and grab something to pull it. And it's really going to reach out, grab it, and push it, like a doorknob. You don't pull a doorknob. You're actually pushing on the back of the doorknob. It's an inverted push. It's never a pull. So the argument is show me the example that shows. All right? I mean, this invisible force doesn't show what the cause is. And I'm saying I can explain the cause. All right? But that's all I can do, is give you a working model. Now, if you can show me a working model of pull, fine. But I don't think you can draw one. I don't think you can explain the working model of pull without just saying it magically does it. I mean, I could illustrate it as poorly as they did gravity, right? I could go back and say, okay, I could go back to the diagram of a person sitting here saying, how do I attract someone? Okay, they're over here. How do I attract them without creating negative, some sort of negative pressure? Well, I guess I could dig a hole, right? I could just dig a hole, right? I could put myself down here, and now there's a slope, and I could force him to fall down the slope. But what do you think is really going to happen? Well, you're using gravity then, right? So you're explaining your push with a push. I mean, you're explaining your pull with a push. You're saying, okay, gravity makes him fall down the hill. Well, where did the gravity come from? We're talking about like an empty space. This isn't going to work, right? So in a clean circumstance, you can't rely on gravity to push him down the hole. So that's kind of a lame way to say, oh, that's attraction. When, well, no, we kind of know that doesn't happen in space. That only happens when you have gravity pushing, so that's not going to work as an explanation. I'm just saying there's just no way to make pull without invoking magic. You have to invoke magic to make pull. You can't do it with rocks. You can't do it with particles. You can't make a particle theory do pull without making the particles magical. And I can make a model of pull out of push by just having an absence of the push and a presence of it on the outside. Alright, so yeah, I think that's probably enough of that. So we'll go back to this other kind of snarky comment and just reply to some of this nonsense. This is incoherent drivel. So this is an explanation of the magnetism and the simple kind of inverse model. So I guess I might as well just throw that in for free. That the simple model for magnetism is the magnet doesn't do anything. It doesn't create any energy. There's nothing it generates. And that all it's doing is taking a universe that already exists that has these two forces in it. Right? Let's just make a few of these. And a few of these. Yeah, I have the right video on. Alright. And I'm just saying the magnet's doing something really quite simple. It's just saying because of its orientation of the atoms, they're all doing the same thing. They're all polarized. And there's a bunch of little magnets inside the big magnet, so to speak. And the basic principle is this simple principle. The green stuff hits, and because of the orientation of the magnet, it gets bent 90 degrees when it hits the red side, and so it comes out the green side. The green energy, because it reflects eventually, it causes momentum, and then there's a pushback, and the pushback means a reflection. So all the green that hits reflects back out. And so you can sort of see that in the end, the filter just says, I'm going to take this mixed force, purple, and I'm going to segregate it because I'm a magnet, and I'm going to send the red stuff out one end and the blue stuff out the other end. So all the red reflects, and then all the red that hits the blue end gets bent, so it comes out this end. So this end gets redder and redder, alright, and this end gets bluer and bluer. And that'll perfectly explain why, okay. The magnet now will create the two poles, and the one pole is going to reflect the electron, the other pole is going to reflect the proton, and cause the inverse relationship. And it'll explain why it flips and everything else. And you can understand it that if I took charges and if I did this to an electron and a proton, if I smash them together like this, and I polarize them, the electron's clearly on one side, the proton's clearly on the other side, and I made a model like that, it would behave with other charges exactly the same as magnetism. If I took another pair of electrons and protons, I drew too much stuff here, so let me just get rid of the real field here. So I'm just saying you can sort of just understand that if I could stick an electron to a proton, I'd end up with a magnet. And if there was another electron and proton over here, that if I put them this way, they'd attract, and if I put them the opposite way, they would turn. Okay, so if I put the blue thing down, no, the opposite, the same way. If I put them the same way, they'll turn. You'll see that this is, there's going to be attraction this way and attraction this way, and there's going to be repulsion straight across, and this one's going to attempt to flip. It's going to turn that way, turn this way, and it's going to flip and then attract. All right. Okay, you have no experimental evidence to support this. So, of course, I have the same exact experimental evidence. This is such an insane lie. The same experiments is the whole point. This explains what we see, you idiot. Exactly what we see. And this explanation is perfectly consistent with Maxwell's math, because Maxwell's math is basically saying, in spite of some people having, some other misimpression, Maxwell's math is actually counting these vectors. It's saying how much pressure is coming from this end, how much, opposite pressure is coming from this attractive pressure. It is vectors, okay? Maxwell's drawings of charge is all about vectors, 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 lines of force, straight lines of force, perpendicular to the surface, straight rays of force. So it's perfectly consistent with what we see in the experiments, and it's consistent with the equations. So you're just lying so preposterously to say somehow the evidence doesn't support it, because the evidence does support it. It explains what we see in the experiments. And I have shown the experiments, all of Professor Lewin's experiments, lots of other experiments on the YouTube that are available. And what no one has done is shown a counter experiment, some experiment that proves this can't work. All right, no ability to make predictions. Of course, this making prediction shit is absolute nonsense. We can all predict what's going to happen when we flip coins. We can all do these predictions. They mean absolutely nothing. And clearly this theory is consistent with what the experiments, what happens within them. So clearly it's accurately predicting the outcome, you stupid shit. Oh, man. All right, predictions based on this misuse of terminology. Where's the misuse of any terminology at all? Perpendicular, I'm misusing it by pointing out there's different kinds of reflections that are clearly lossless, that something bangs into something and it changes direction, and there doesn't appear to be any cost to that change in direction. The current goes through a wire and a magnetic field is produced perpendicular to the motion of that electricity. That isn't a truth. Oh, fuck you. Define pressure. Well, it's defined by the existence of the stuff moving the speed of light, so I don't need to define it. I already have defined it. Define force. Well, that's exactly what it is. It's little bits and little quanta of energy, perfectly consistent with what is observed experimentally. Define energy. I've done all of that. Energy is just seeing an imbalance. You don't see energy when it's balanced. You see energy, okay, when there's an imbalance. When things aren't moving, you don't know what forces are being applied to them because the forces are in balance. But there's still forces involved and they're still hitting it. There just happens to be a balance of them. If the Nazis are coming this way and the U.S. is coming this way and the two meet each other and they don't do any moving, the line, the trench just sits there for years, right? Doesn't mean there's not a war. Doesn't mean there isn't force. It just means they're not getting anywhere. I have defined it. Produce equations. Why do I need to produce equations that have already been done? 2 plus 2 equals 4. Now, if I unify physics, I don't change that equation any at all. I'm not going to change Newton's inverse square law because it works for light bulbs. It works for this hand. Why would I need new math? The math we have already works, idiot. You know, you think there's waves in the math? You think there's such a thing as a wave equation that has a wave in it? No, the wave equation has straight line vectors in it. You're the clueless idiot. I mean, damn. And show how they are related. Well, I've already done that. I've just shown you the relationship. I've just shown you what you need mathematics to understand. Well, if I have two ping pong paddles and I close their distance, that is, I make them half as far away, and the ball never loses momentum, that it will now hit the surface twice as often. It hits a surface twice as often. You don't understand? Shit. Explain how momentum is different from force. Well, I've already explained that. The two things, the force is either going to cause momentum in an electron or proton, or the force is going to get deflected into another dimension. Those are the two interactions that are possible. And that sentence is beyond your comprehension. That's what you're telling me. You can't understand. It's a real thing. Okay, it can't be countered as it doesn't work. Of course it does work. You're just saying, I don't wish to believe that's how the universe works. The model works. The model causes the effects, but you just don't want to believe, and that's it. You can't deny that it doesn't work. Of course it works. There's a thing called mock gravity. It works for gravity. Now you can make other objections, but it actually explains gravity perfectly. It'll give you the inverse square law. All the physicists will admit it. Feynman overtly admits it works. So, you know, what the hell is this shit? You're just making this crap up, right? All right. Explain how pressure is different from force. It isn't any different from force. It's exactly what the force does. It creates pressure. The force pressurizes the universe. Explain mass. Mass is just the fact that electrons and protons are sensitive, okay, to the specific forces. The red force will repel an electron. The blue force will repel a proton. And the inverse will happen. If the blue force hits an electron, it'll just divert it. If a red force hits a proton, it'll just divert it. Explain compression. I already have. Force, pressure, and how energy relate. Well, as I've pointed out, the magnet doesn't have any energy of its own. It's just segregating the energy that comes into it. The same energy that creates gravity, it just sits there and gives you gravity. Red this way, blue that way. Same amount of force in, same amount of force out. It's just that now it's some other charged object can see the difference. Some non-charged object, some object's a dipole that has both poles and reacts both to both things, won't be able to see it. But something that is polar will see it. They'll see the difference between the red side and the blue side. You can't. This is absolute Bullock. So I have this Bullock's thing. I guess you're some sort of English Gilbert piece of shit. But again, you didn't make any argument. I've offered $1,500. Why don't you go find one of your advocates of this fake physics of yours, this phony lie of conventional nonsense, your 400 fake little antiparticles, your Youre ESP particles, all your nonsense, your superpositions. Oh, they can all be in the same place at the same time. I mean, it's all magical horse shit. Okay, why don't you get one of those to grow a set of balls and take my $1,500 to debunk me? $1,500 to make a fool out of me. So you think I'm a fool? You think I'm an idiot? You think it's absolute Bullocks? $1,500 for one of your people to put their reputation on the line. And they won't do it. Because they're cowards. Because they're afraid of the argument. You piece of shit. Now again, you made no counter argument. Post me to the link of the video on YouTube you would stand by on the double slit experiment. Show me one fucking video out of the fucking 100,000 that must be on YouTube. Show me one of them that you say is good science. Show it to me, coward. Jeez. There's not a single part of conventional physics or the standard model that can be defended. None of it. It's all garbage. Every fucking bit of it. Alright. So we will now go to the troll. Ugh. Oh, sorry. I should have been on the other screen. Yeah, sorry. So I read this jerk. Oh, I've already deleted his comment. Sorry. Didn't block him. Just deleted. Let's see if he shows up with a link. The coward. The shit talker. But probably won't happen. Alright, so I shouldn't bother, but look, the Farley asshole, Gelfield, William Gelfland, whatever the fuck it is. The guy who just, he's such an asshole. So he keeps, make a counter argument, fine. Post comments, fine. So he posts a bunch of comments. I didn't delete them. He complained that I deleted them when I didn't delete them. But anyway, I respond to them, and then he deletes his own comments. So he makes these accusations, and then he just deletes it and run away. Which is such a coward. Because clearly he's the one hiding the truth. He's the one running from his reputation. He's the one running from what he said. Right? And then he leaves this piece of shit video up where it just shows how ignorant he is. Just how profoundly ignorant he is, and what a insensible, nonsensical, insane liar he is. And then to boot, on top of that, it's not bad enough that he makes a shit video full of lies. He again has to keep using my real name. He has to keep playing with my frickin' identity in a personal way that's completely against anybody who has any civil decency on the internet. Knows you don't play with people's identity. You just don't play with it, because there's loonies in the world that will actually show up at your door and kill you. It actually happens in the world, and it's a real problem for people having security in a loony bin. And it's something nobody plays with who's rational. Rational people don't counter argue by trying to solicit other people to attack other people in personal ways. And that's all using my name is doing. He's just saying to the other crazies who might be listening to him, yeah, go get this guy. Right? And he's doing it when I've told him I don't give a fuck myself, but other people have to live in this house. And so if you dox me, you use my name, then you're using, then you're implying, he's also printed the address and all the rest of it. I mean, this is such a despicable tactic. And it's just amazing that he gets enough support, I guess, from enough of you assholes to think this is a legitimate thing to do on the internet. To sit there and pick on people who live in the house I live in. Like, that's a way to get to me, is to attack them. And I've had people do this. Again, I will be able to go to court and show how this is such a threat. Because I had people do this in the past. They contact the mayor of the town. They do all kinds of things, create lies, call the police, do all kinds of things that can ruin my ability to live civilly in my neighborhood. And not based on anything I actually did, just based on overt lies. Okay? And they can ruin relationships with people and cause, people get aggravated if they're getting harassed. So you harass the people who live next door to me, yeah, they'll end up, resenting my existence. These are facts, and this asshole doesn't care. I've overtly made the plea to him, quit playing these games, fuckhead. Alright? I mean, and I'm going to charge you for them, okay? I'm going to go into court and I'm going to say I want $100 for every time I have to sit there and flag this crap, because it's a waste of my fucking time. And you're going to pay for that time, fuckhead. So just keep doing it, and you're just going to keep bringing the total higher and higher. And a judge isn't going to have a reasonable argument to say it's not worth that. So you're just fucking yourself, shithead. And it's unfortunate that some other loonies give you enough support to think what you're doing makes any sense at all, because it makes no sense. You're making your side look ridiculous. You're making your argument, this whole idea that you guys are fighting for the truth. You're showing yourself to be a religious fanatic. You're behaving like a loony Muslim. Okay? You're not behaving like some sort of person with integrity who gives a fuck about the truth. So this video just proves the point. It's just full of lies, and then he ends it just showing how fucking ignorant he is.
Okay, so this is just a quick video to not to this guy.
Again, he put my name in the description of the video for no good reason at all. Zero good reason. Just another malicious attack. Just another desperate hope, okay, that he can cause harm. You know, that he can extort me out of my free speech. That's all he's trying to do. Ugh, disgusting. We need more. We need more volume, clearly. See if this will work. Can't get it out of his video, so his production values suck.
I guess I don't know. I don't know who it's for.
Yeah, so at least he's resigned to that. He knows that nobody's listening, okay, which is good. Nobody who's sane.
I don't know who it's for anymore.
It's for you, shithead, because you're a desperately petty piece of shit.
Let's see. Okay, so this guy here likes to he likes to deny evidence a lot, and so just to give a
So more than lies, right? I'm begging you to show me the evidence. I'm begging you $1,500 to some physicist to instruct me for 1 hour. 1 hour of his time, $1,500, and there's no showers.
background on this guy. Let's see, draft physics.
So let's understand, there's no background. There's DraftPhysics.com. It's in every fucking video. Yeah. But I clearly argue that if you want to know the physics, watch the videos, because I don't update the website. But ignore that, right? So another desperate... how desperate is it? I point you exactly. I have playlists called Subject. Go to the playlist and it has the subjects and the last 4 videos or whatever, the last 4 that were uploaded. That's the most current argument. Argue that. Will he argue that? No. He goes out and says, I'm going to argue something else instead. So let's just understand. Is this how somebody who has the right answer argues? Is this how they debunk you? I'm going to go find your worst argument, not your best argument.
This guy has a theory of everything. So this is his website. DraftScience presents Physics the Do-Over. It's
a pretty simple argument that, yes, physics just, Newton said this is what happens. I really don't understand how it happens. And then in the 1900s, they decided, well, we don't like not knowing what the right answers are, so we'll just choose some. And so they just decided, even though they didn't know, like Benjamin Franklin, which side should be plus and minus, we'll just assign it anyway. And so what if we're wrong? So they decide wave, particle, that's a wave. And clearly there's this wave theory. Come on, it's just be ludicrous for somebody to say particle physics by conventional label has anything to do with particle physics when they've declared everything has a wave function. So you can't say it's a particle theory except we include a bunch of wave functions. That everything is waving as it's particling. I mean, you can't really call that a legitimate particle theory. Get real.
Photon stupid. And this paper...
I should just rename that. It's about force and matter, frankly, and that's all there is. The matter bits are dead. The force bits are alive. The force bits do all the pushing.
I'm using that word in quotes now. This is a paper on the quote-unquote the correct theory of everything. So it has a 2-paragraph abstract.
And why should an abstract be any longer than 2 paragraphs? It's just supposed to get you to the idea of what's being demonstrated in the rest of the paper. That's all it's supposed to do. Does it need to be 5 paragraphs? How many paragraphs is the abstract supposed to be exactly? What's the rule? Pathetic.
So it says that at some point in the early 1900s, the science of physics committed itself to a confused dualism model of reality where things could be more than one thing.
And I should say in more than one place. occupying the same space. Yeah, they could violate all kinds of rational rules. 17 things can occupy the same space. You know, makes no sense. Can't do it with platypuses, can't do it with penguins, can't do it with elephants, can't do it with anything real in the world. But no, the magical small universe, you can do all of these things where you can just smash everything in the same place.
The controversy of wave versus particle became the compromise of particles waving, and with that physics waved goodbye to a rationally comprehensible model /description or /description of reality.
Right, I think that's quite a witty statement. Well done. Excellent. It's exactly what happened. Yes, very good.
Of material reality. I contend that the particle theory of reality was correct. The standard model is a particle theory of reality. I don't know.
No, it isn't. I mean, it's just silly to say it is because it isn't. Gluons, it's not a particle. A magical particle that forces things to move the opposite direction. I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with anything anybody would call as classical kinematics or classical particles. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Entanglement? Where's particle theory in entanglement? That's ESP, idiot. ESP isn't a particle theory.
That means. And that I guess he means a Newtonian particle theory.
No, if I meant Newtonian, I would have said Newtonian. Why? What is this Newtonian stuff? Again, Newton posited no theory. He overtly said it. I posit no explanation for cause. He overtly said it. I'm clearly positing a cause. I'm doing something completely different than what Newton was doing. Newton told you, hey, look, my hand gets 4 times bigger even though I go only half the distance. That's what Newton said. He didn't explain why. He just said that's what it does. See? Yeah. And so he explained how, moons and planets and stuff, and explained how they're orbiting, and he told you how they're doing it. Okay? And that there appears to be this inverse square rule that everything's really a point charge. And, it can be looked at that way, and there's a bunch of these vectors of force that are making things go in a direction. And that's it. You didn't explain why. So why are you putting this Newton label on me? I am saying why. I'm giving you the explanation of why it's happening. I'm giving you that model. That's not Newton. Fuck.
Of reality. Except if you go on to read the paper, you'll see that it's anything but Newtonian.
Right. Newton didn't posit an explanation. So again, why wouldn't it be anything but Newtonian? Because I'm not talking about what happens. I'm talking about why it happens. We already figured out what happens. That everybody already knows. Right? Everybody's seen the magnet do the magnet thing. So why are we arguing about what happens? No, the argument's about why is it happening, jackass? And I'm saying it's not because of some wacky, wooey, girly, pussy, shitty little wavical bent space nonsense.
Right.
Your frickin' girly physics. Your girly physics.
Newtonian objects don't bounce exactly at 90 degrees.
I mean, this guy, has some affinity with John Wayne. I mean, John Wayne, and would sit there with your little wavical, faggoty, little wimpy, oh, the space is bent. The empty space tells the matter what to do. Ooh. And the little particles are all ESPing, and they're all spying on us. Ooh. Ugh, it's disgusting.
Regardless of the angle of inflection. In fact, I'm not even sure if that's a...
So again, regardless, he's not reading anything from a document now, right? So he just gave up on actually reading what I wrote, which, again, there's lots of parts of this that I've completely changed. Oops, I shouldn't have done that. And, that's a fact. I've changed it, all right? This isn't the most updated version of the argument. But most of what's in here, the kinetic argument, right? Do I have to do this one again? So he's saying, I reject this. This is nonsense. This has been proven not to be true. So, I mean, a simple argument, right? I mean, this is just too simple. And he's saying there's something wrong with me pointing this out as an illustration. So you have two forces hit each other. All right? Equal forces. You could argue they could go through each other. right? So one goes through the other one, and so one goes out this way, one goes out this way. Then you could argue they hit each other and reflect. Well, that means one goes out this way and one goes out this way. They could miss each other. Oh, one goes out this way and one goes out that way. You can't tell the difference, can you? No. And the only way you could tell the difference, well, is if there's two different kinds of force. Well, then the reflection, oh yeah, I can see the reflection is different because the green thing's going that way. Right? So I could see the difference. Right? And so I'm just pointing out that the same would be true when you have an argument like, when the two things, are coming in at angles. You could argue that, this one goes straight and this one goes straight. You could argue, again, the reflection argument, or you could argue, well, it doesn't really a reflection, or you could argue the deflection argument, right? This one goes this way, and this one, if it's another color, you could see, oh, I could see this. I could see the difference between them just missing each other and hitting each other. I'll see the difference if they're different. He can't understand that. That's too complicated for him. Idiot.
Comprehensible sentence to say that two objects that bounce at an arbitrary angle of inflection.
So I didn't say anything. There's no bouncing at arbitrary angles, blah, blah, blah. That's in there.
Always bounce 90 degrees. What does that mean? 90 degrees with respect to what? But regardless.
The angle you hit.
This is his theory. I think so far exactly 0 scientists have considered it.
And let's understand, and I'm offering them real money to do exactly that, consider it. So I made a deal with a guy for $50, okay, and he kept saying, oh yeah, I'm just getting up to, see what your argument is, and blah, blah. And so he did look at it and then ran away. Okay, so, keep making this argument that I haven't done everything I can to solicit somebody and to pay them for their time, and they still won't do it. Now, isn't that kind of obvious? Even and the people like Baldy Cats bail the fuck out and run away. AB Science, no, they're afraid. Clearly afraid. Anyway,
for the 6 or 7 years that it's been around,
And so to understand, I offered big money to people in the past, $3,000 to people like Sean Carroll and different people, and they won't take the money.
And so let's just go back here. So this guy likes to do a lot of videos. Ostensibly they're science videos, but they never have any science in them. He likes to take popular videos like.
So again, this is more nonsense. I've taken popular and unpopular videos. I've taken physics lectures from Shakar at Yale, Lewin at MIT, and I always forget his name, at Stanford, Leonard Susskind. So I've played lots of different clips of lots of different people explaining their physics. And again, he's basically claiming that Veritasium is a shitty scientist. Right to your face, he's telling you he's a junk scientist. So isn't that funny? He's making my argument for me. He's saying, well, of course you found huge flaws in Veritasium's procedures and methods, because he's a shitty scientist. He's just doing cartoon videos. So he's making my argument for me. It's amazing. He's completely conceding that I've legitimately shown their science to be shit. And he's just claiming, oh, well, those are just the shitty scientists. We have real ones. Yeah, we have real ones hidden, over there in the other, in the multiverse. There's some real scientists in the multiverse just waiting. They're just gnawing at the bars of the the wormhole, just trying to get in so they can show me to be a stupid dupe. They're just so desperate to prove how their physics is so good when they get a real scientist to do it. Because none of the people I've played are real scientists. I mean, Professor Lewin was just called a professor just for the hell of it. It wasn't really meant to mean anything. It's not like he went to school or something. He's just making it up, obviously.
Artesium's videos that are really what they do is they are videos that present a very simplified version of science.
So again, there's nothing simple, you know. So there's another big lie. I think Veritasium has a video on how, you know, well, that might be number file. No, it might be, well, I can't remember. So I won't bother making the argument. But anyway, you know, I mean, how relativity is affecting electrons, and that's what causes magnetism.
It's like a scientific theory, and use a lot of colorful illustrations and animations.
Well, and actually a $5,000 double slit experiment that I just demonstrated to be a piece of shit. Yeah, so he spent $5,000 on a piece of shit.
They're entertainment videos. I mean, the people who make these videos, even they may have worked as scientists at some point in their.
So isn't this funny? I mean, he's making my argument for me, right? So all of the science on YouTube is crap. Forget it. And he won't give me the link to the good science, right? So I'm sitting here begging, give me the link to the good science. Show me the two-slit experiment done right. Can he provide the link? No. So there's not a single video on YouTube or any other video site or any university site that actually dissects the double slit experiment correctly. And he's conceding the argument. He's conceding there's not a single piece of material you can have access to because it's all in the special multiverse where the real physicists are. Only the real physicists can show you the real experiment. You know. Hilarious.
Lives as a career. But they're not doing cutting edge research or anything.
Right, so Feynman was full of shit. Every one of the guys I've played, Leonard Susskind's full of shit, lazy, you know, pop science, you know, garbage. They're all garbage physicists. He's just saying it right to you. He's just making my argument for me. Thank you.
And they never quote scientific papers exactly. You know, it's entertainment. But he likes, or he takes those videos and does like quote unquote response videos to them, or he will play lectures for undergraduates.
So again, he's saying the third year physics is junk physics. So the lectures you go to when you're in your third year of a physics degree is a junk lecture. It's trivial.
Which again is pedagogical. So they take the material and condense it.
Yeah, it's the Reader's Digest version. And you know, they don't go to real college, right? So all of the stuff that's online is junk. It isn't the real courseware. And there's another special course somewhere that they took that was real physics. So they took this condensed cruddy physics and then they take the real physics, you know, when? Oh, that's right. They can take it right now because, you know, just like quantum computing, you can take 15 different college courses all at once. Yeah. So, I mean, they take all of those in, they go into the special singularity booth, and you know, and then they're able to quantum jump to a physics degree. But yeah, we don't have access to that special, you know, device. So yeah, we don't have the same advantages here as just regular lay people. We don't have, you know, we don't have any access to that special information.
But he never does he never shows the experiments that prove.
So again, another lie, right? I've shown the ones from the 50s repeatedly. The muon experiment, the electron experiment, every experiment on light I've shown, the radio experiment, shown all these experiments. So it's just a preposterous lie. And I played all of Professor Lewin's experiments. Every single one of them. I played the guy from the community college, you know, on the light refraction. Played the entire lecture full of experiments.
What they're saying, he just shows what they're saying and then says this can't be true because blah 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 blah.
Yeah, right. I make valid arguments that have something to do with the actual truth, and he just pretends that didn't happen when it did happen. I point out how a beam splitter doesn't create two equal beams. It's physically impossible for it to do it. There's theoretically no theory that makes any sense.
Okay, so his big thing is that he likes to say that the Eddington experiment has never been duplicated.
And it's a steaming pile of shit as an experiment. It's absolute rubbish. 1918, right? A long time ago, and yeah, clearly, right in his own journal, he's expecting 10,000 stars on his plates. He got 1,000. 1/10 of the quality of the data. Right there, the experiment should have been over. Right there, you say, forget it. Okay, you're too compromised. Don't bother. Try again next time. Any good scientist would say, clearly, if I'm using 10% of the data, I was already trying to do something very difficult, very challenging. It's like an Olympic athlete still showing up at the Olympics after his arms got cut off or something. It makes no sense at all. You lost 90% of your data, and you're going to sit there and still think you're going to make a legitimate measurement?
All right. So I just want to. So for those who don't know, the Eddington experiment was performed, I think, in 1918 or 1919, and it showed gravitational lensing.
That wasn't the argument. No, it showed twice as much. So if you just take light and consider it to have a mass of 1, some arbitrary mass, a real mass of some kind, so you can at least do the equation without getting a 0. So you just give it whatever. And gravity is a velocity equation. How much you're bent depends on your velocity, not your mass. So the point would be is that by Newtonian physics, you bend a certain amount. And Einstein's theory is, unlike all the other matter in the universe, so unlike the moon, and unlike electrons, unlike atoms, unlike every other piece of matter in the universe, light, okay, doesn't bend this much, it bends this much, twice as much. So only light and only light, only photons, not magnetism, not any other force moving the speed of light, only light is bent by gravity. Gravity is not bent by gravity, but light is.
There was a total eclipse of the sun, and this guy Eddington took pictures with a telescope showing that the stars in back of the sun...
they weren't in back of the sun, so again, that's just another lie to keep saying it's in behind something or back of. No.
They were deflected, so they appeared where they shouldn't appear, given Newtonian physics.
The light was changed in its direction by gravity. So that's the assertion. So the pictures, the stars were outside the sun's corona, so you couldn't argue the light was being bent by scatter. It has to be bent by gravity. And that's the experiment. Now let's point out the sun's gravity isn't what you think it is, right? Everybody has this notion that the sun's this big, giant, massive thing. Well, the problem is it's a big, giant, massive thing, which means it's made of it's not very dense. The Earth is 1,000,000 times denser than the sun. The sun's 1,000,000 times bigger, but the Earth's 1,000,000 times denser. So, I mean, the trick is that the sun's gravity is only 8 times what it is on Earth, right on the surface. And they have to look way far away from the surface. So it's even less, it's a lot less. It's like 4 times as much as the surface gravity on Earth. It's not a lot of gravity, not a lot of bending.
And, that made the newspaper. I think Gary has stated that this somehow won Einstein a Nobel Prize.
Okay, I never stated it's just a fucking idiotic lie. So again, just keep lying. What I stated is Einstein was a nobody and would have stayed a nobody if it wasn't for Eddington. Okay, Eddington made him famous, and it doesn't matter what all the other scientists say, it doesn't matter what anybody else says. You got a New York headline, New York Times headline, Einstein proven right. That's what happened because of the Eddington experiment. So that's the truth, that's the real history. I haven't said it any other way, and he keeps lying that I said something else. No, that's all I've said. Shit for brain.
This experiment that's not true. Einstein won his Nobel Prize for the photoelectric effect.
Right, I never said otherwise. Ever.
In fact, many scientists of the day did not accept Eddington's results.
Didn't matter, right? You're saying, so he's just telling us that, right? We have no evidence of that. So after the Eddington experiment, all the scientists jumped on board. Well, that's what the history shows. So, where's your evidence of this counter argument? that even after the Eddington experiment, there was a whole bunch of scientists saying Einstein's full of shit. This is a girly answer to what the fuck gravity is. Bent space? What the fuck are you talking? Bent space time? What is that horse shit? It's not a thing. Nothing tells the something what to do. Oh, that's just so cool. Why don't I just say gremlins did it? The gremlin theory. Frankly, as a kid, I would have been more interested in the gremlin theory than the fucking bent space theory. It just sounds stupid. It's incomprehensible. What? Bent? What? Bent how? How do you bend 3 dimensions? What the fuck are you talking about?
And it was repeated several times in the 50s and I think in the 60s. And the results were not above the statistical error.
Yes, and the eclipses were marginal. That is, they were lower on the horizon, which made them shitty. Unlike the 2000 and whatever it was, 18 eclipse, which was perfect. You know, over North America. Perfect. 12 noon eclipse. Couldn't get a better eclipse than nobody. No professional did the experiment. And the only one who did do it, an amateur, did it with a bunch of synthetic star charts.
But then, of course, it was conducted later with satellites.
So that's a complete lie. Never conducted with any satellite. Never using anything called a photograph or film or doing light. NASA scientists will tell you under oath in court, they'll tell you, we've never seen light bend outside the sun's corona. So we can shoot radio waves, do all that crap, but we only get back scatter. We don't get back anything outside the corona.
And radio waves. And that conclusively proved that there was...
So there's no conclusive proof. This is just a citation to more fake evidence, more fake arguments that somehow this Gelfield idiot knows how to tell the difference between light bent by scatter and light bent by gravity. That he has some detector that can do that. When he has no such detector, he has no such instrument, no such instrument's ever been invented. It's just a pile of shit. It's just a fucking another one of their lies. So they're just sitting here lying to you. Can you smell this kind of desperation? Now, why are they so desperate? That's right, because it's a religion. This isn't a scientific argument. This is an argument by a religious kook. A malicious one, too.
Lensing. But regardless of that,
he's nothing but a fucking Muslim.
This claim that it has never been repeated is just not true.
It is absolutely true. Okay? It's never been successfully repeated with comparable or better technology. So in the 100 years since the experiment was done, it has never been attempted, apparently, by anyone with any better technology. And isn't that a statement? I mean, a gigantic, glaring statement that isn't there something wrong? Doesn't that smell really bad? That you have an experiment where you're saying we prove something, and yet you haven't repeated it with better technology through the entire Industrial Revolution. You just ignored the Industrial Revolution and just said we're not going to use anything better than horseshoes, and whatever. A covered wagon. We're going to use a covered wagon to do our experiment.
Let's go here. Okay,
Now, this just illustrates just how clueless he is, and exactly what I demonstrated in the last video about how this was so deceptive of them to put this little fake video on here, because it's so stupid.
This is an image from this is a time lapse taken with the Hubble telescope.
All right, it's not even a time lapse. It's 7 images. It's a video of 7 still images. And the still images aren't taken at the same time interval. So the frames aren't at the same time interval. And he's too stupid. He didn't even realize that. So he paid so little attention to this piece of garbage. And he's claiming it proves something. And it's claiming I've weaseled out because I haven't accounted for this super cool piece of evidence. And it's a steaming piece of shit. And so he's just proving my argument, right? All of this hype, look, they have done it. They have. And it's nothing.
It shows the apparent motion of the white dwarf star Stein 2051b as it passes in front of a distant star. The observations were taken between October 1st, 2013 and October 14, 2015. So it was over
7 still images over a 2-year period. And they turned it into an animation, and this idiot doesn't realize the big thing isn't the thing being lensed, idiot. The little thing is the thing being lensed, you dumbass. So he doesn't even understand which object is in the front and which object is in the back. He's so fucking stupid.
the course of 2 years. So let's just play this video.
So again, he deleted his comments. I didn't delete them. He deleted his comments where he posted a link to this piece of shit because he knows it's a piece of shit now. And but he has left this video up. And again, to the uninitiated, to the people who don't know what he's showing, oh, it's going to look like he's making an argument. But the argument is so stupid. He doesn't even realize which object in this image is being lensed and which one is the lens.
Okay, so you can see the star is being, the path of the stars are being warped around.
Okay, now obviously the path of the star doesn't change at all. It's just 7 images of the path of the star, and they're not taken at the same time. So obviously they took 4 images right here close to this thing. So obviously it looks like there was some sort of change, but there really wasn't. It moved from point A to point B in a consistent speed. It's only that they took 4 images here that it looks like it moved faster or moved different or moved erratically. But the very fact that it doesn't look like it moves in a perfect straight line might indicate that how the hell are they going to do something that's 1,000 times more difficult than what Eddington did? 1,000 times more difficult measurement, and they're going to do it with this crap image. I mean, it's a crap image. If they had a better image, they'd show it to you, right? So you know their data sucks. And yet they're doing something 1,000 times harder than what Eddington did. It's hilarious.
So, I would love to hear what Gary Mosier's explanation.
Oh, damn it. I was supposed to cut that part out. Well, anyway. But why would he do that? Again, just why? Why? Doesn't need to do that. Again, just being an ass. So he would love to hear my explanation of why this thing wobbles and goes crookedy. Oh, that's right. It's not supposed to be doing that. That's not what they're showing, you idiot. You don't even know which object's being lensed, you stupid fuck. So yes, clearly in this simulation, it's absolutely useless. It's not going to show you the little dot being lensed. And it's certainly not going to show you a movement that's 1,000 times smaller than the movement of the Eddington dot. So clearly not really useful. And it wasn't actually on the original news article, didn't have this silly animation. This silly, let's do a video of 7 images. I mean, a frame rate of 7 images, right? So it's a frame rate of, 7 frames per minute, right? The video is like 60 seconds. It's 7 frames per minute. It's so bad. It's not 7 frames per second. No, it's 7 frames per minute. Oh. Pathetic.
Explanation for this is this like a giant mothership that's the size of...
Yeah, I'll make some comic remarks about, what your brain is. I mean, what kind of, what do you eat to get this stupid? I mean, the world should really investigate just how does somebody get as dumb as you arrogant retard. I mean, you sit here and pretend you know something, and you're going to make arguments, you're going to insult people, you're going to attack their family, you're going to use their mother and father's name like you own them. You're going to do all of this crap, and this is going to be how bad your argument is. You don't even know which object is in front of the other object. I mean, it's amazingly bad.
A large size, is this like the Death Star, and it's just floating around in space? Is this caused by Brownian motion? I think he says that the twinkling of the stars is...
Yeah, what I've said is that everything's moving. So even the telescope, the lens, everything is moving all the time. It's getting jostled. And that's why you can't see very well, is because you're moving and, the looker is moving and the thing you're looking at is moving.
Caused by Brownian motion. which is, if anybody has a high school degree, diploma, you know how ridiculous that sounds.
Well, it really doesn't if you consider what's going to happen in terms of how light's going to get bent, and that if the thing that's bending the light is moving, that it's going to bend it different at every different moment in time.
Yeah, how do you explain this?
Well, I think I did in the video. I explained it. And I explained how this is so preposterous and so bad, and it just makes exactly what I've always argued. Hubble is a big, pile of a collective that has to justify their existence just like all the others. They have to pretend they're doing something meaningful and important, and so they cheat the fuck out of the science. So this is just an example of them making news. I mean, this is as fake news as you get. They write their own news articles, okay? And that's all this is. It wasn't news on some website somewhere. No, this was them making news, all right? And they made this into a story, and the story is full of stuff that any reasonable scientist would say, oh, that's a ridiculous claim. Again, the Eddington experiment, even with modern technology, is still a difficult measurement. So even if they attempted it, it's still difficult. It's not easy. You have to be careful. It's very precise. Very small amount of deflection you're looking for. And this, they're claiming, is a 1,000 times harder than that. 1,000 times smaller deviation. It's theoretically impossible. It's just like when LIGO says, we can see a change in the position of the mirror that is 1/10,000th of the width of a proton. It's theoretically insane for some fucktard to say that. It makes no fucking sense. Anybody with a rational understanding of reality knows there's no fucking way we can do that. So, anyway, it's disgusting behavior from a disgusting piece of shit. Alright, so enough of a video. Just disgusting. People suck, and they just keep proving it. Okay, they show you all the time. And again, the assholes who feed these assholes, they're even more despicable. Okay, the little trolley pieces of garbage who are so desperate for an ally, they'll sign anyone up to their team, just so desperate. Okay, so till the next time and such.